In 1943, the Luftwaffe ruled the skies over Europe. German pilots feared nothing until one plane changed everything. This is the story of the P-51 Mustang, the aircraft that destroyed Hitler's air dominance and turned the tide of World War II. It's a story of desperation, innovation, and one of the most radical aircraft designs ever built. Because without this plane, D-Day might never have happened. The bombing campaign against Nazi Germany would have failed, and the war could have dragged on for years. Thousands more would have died. But here's the thing. The Mustang almost didn't exist, and when it was first built, it was a disappointment, a failure, an aircraft the US Army didn't even want. So how did an average fighter plane become the weapon that broke the Luftwaffe? How did it go from rejected prototype to the most feared aircraft in the European theater? This is that story. And it begins with a catastrophe. October 14th, 1943. A date the U.S. 8th Air Force would remember as Black Thursday. On that autumn morning, 291 B-17 Flying Fortresses lifted off from English airfields. Their target? The ball-bearing factories in Schweinfurt, Germany, deep in enemy territory, 300 miles from the Channel coast. Ball bearings don't sound important, but they were everything. Every tank, every aircraft, every piece of German machinery needed them. Destroy the factories, and you cripple the Nazi war machine. At least that was the theory. The bombers climbed to 25,000 feet and headed east. Their fighter escorts, P-47 Thunderbolts, stayed with them as long as they could. But somewhere over Belgium, the P-47s waggled their wings. The signal: out of fuel, turning back. The bombers were on their own, and the Luftwaffe was waiting. German fighters had been tracking the formation on radar. Messerschmitt Bf 109s, Focke-Wulf 190s. They'd been holding back, conserving fuel, waiting for the escorts to leave. And now, the killing began. The first attack came head-on. 20 German fighters diving straight at the lead bombers at 400 miles per hour. Cannons blazing. The B-17's nose guns fired back, but it wasn't enough. One bomber exploded midair, then another, then 3 more. The formations tightened. Gunners fired in every direction. Spent shell casings filled the fuselages. The temperature inside the planes was 40 below zero. Oxygen masks froze. Fingers went numb. And the Germans kept coming, wave after wave. For 2 hours, the Luftwaffe hammered the bomber stream. Some B-17s had engines shot out. Some had their tails blown off. Some just disappeared in balls of fire. The bombers made it to Schweinfurt. They dropped their bombs. Then came the nightmare of flying back. Same route, same altitude, and the Germans were still there. By the time the survivors limped back to England, 60 bombers were gone. 60. That's 600 men. Dead, missing, or prisoners of war in a single mission. The gunners who made it back were shell-shocked. Some couldn't speak. Others just stared. One crew chief counted over 200 bullet holes in a single aircraft. Commanders called it unacceptable losses. Airmen called it murder. The problem was brutally simple. American bombers couldn't survive without fighter escort. But American fighters couldn't fly deep enough into Germany. The P-47 Thunderbolt was a beast. Tough as nails. 7 tons of armor and firepower. But its range? 450 miles, maximum. Not enough. The P-38 Lightning. Twin-engine, high-altitude interceptor. Fast, powerful, but temperamental in European weather. And its range wasn't much better. So here's what happened every single day. Fighters would escort bombers to the German border. Then they'd have to turn back. And that's when the slaughter began. German fighter controllers knew exactly where Allied escorts had to turn back. They called it the fighter line. and they positioned their interceptors just beyond it, waiting. The moment the American fighters turned for home, the Luftwaffe pounced. It was systematic, calculated, devastating. Bomber crews had a 1 in 4 chance of completing their required 25 missions. The average life expectancy? 11 missions. 11. Some crews didn't even make it past their first mission. One pilot described it like this: "You'd see a bomber ahead of you just disintegrate. No warning, no parachutes, just gone. And you'd keep flying, because what else could you do?" The 8th Air Force was losing the air war. General Hap Arnold, commander of the Army Air Forces, was furious. He'd promised Roosevelt that strategic bombing would win the war, that American bombers would pound Germany into submission. But it wasn't working. Some commanders wanted to suspend daylight bombing entirely, switch to night raids like the British RAF. Others advocated for better defensive formations, heavier armor. But everyone knew the real answer. They needed a fighter that could escort bombers all the way to Berlin, all the way to Munich, all the way to the heart of the Third Reich and back. In October 1943, that plane didn't exist, but it was about to. Now let's rewind to April 1940. The war in Europe is 8 months old. France is about to fall. The Battle of Britain is looming, and the Royal Air Force is desperate for fighter aircraft. They approach North American Aviation, a relatively small aircraft manufacturer in Los Angeles, with a proposal: build P-40 Warhawks under license. We need them fast. The P-40 is a decent fighter, nothing spectacular, but it's available, and Britain needs planes. North American's president, James Dutch Kindleberger, listens to the proposal. Then he makes a counteroffer. "Give us 120 days, he says. We'll design you something better." The British think he's insane. 120 days? To design, engineer, prototype, and test an entirely new fighter aircraft from scratch? Impossible. It takes years to develop a combat aircraft. The Spitfire took 5 years. The Bf-109 took 4. But Kindleberger isn't bluffing. He brings in his chief designer, Edgar Schmuud, a German-born engineer who fled to America in the 1930s. Brilliant, obsessive, a perfectionist who thought in numbers and aerodynamics. Schmuud assembles a team of the best engineers he can find. They work 18-hour days, no weekends, no breaks. The entire company becomes a pressure cooker of innovation. Schmuud's design philosophy is radical. Start with the aerodynamics. Make the aircraft as clean as possible. Minimal drag. Maximum efficiency. He designs a laminar flow wing, a wing so smooth that air flows over it with almost no turbulence. Less drag means more speed, more range. The fuselage is sleek, tapered. Every rivet is flush. Every panel is smoothed. Wind tunnel tests guide every decision. And the cockpit, positioned behind the wing for better visibility. The pilot sits under a bubble canopy with 360-degree views. Everything about the design is unconventional, radical, different from every other fighter in the sky. On September 9th, 1940, exactly 117 days after they started, the first prototype rolls out of the factory. 3 days ahead of schedule. They call it the NA-73X. Later, it would be named the Mustang. The first flight happens a month later. Test pilot Vance Breese takes it up, pushes it through its paces, and lands with a huge grin. "This thing handles like a dream," he says. The British order it immediately. By 1941, Mustangs are arriving in England. And then the problems start. The Mustang looks gorgeous. Pilots love the handling. The visibility is phenomenal. The aerodynamics are flawless. But there's a problem. A massive, glaring, deal-breaking problem. The engine. The original Mustang uses an Allison V1 710 engine. 12 cylinders, liquid-cooled. It produces about 1,150 horsepower. At low altitude, it's fine. Below 10,000 feet, the Mustang performs beautifully. Fast, nimble, responsive. But above 15,000 feet, it becomes a dog. The Allison Supercharger, a device that compresses air to maintain engine performance at altitude, just can't keep up. Above 15,000 feet, the engine loses power, rapidly. And guess where bomber formations fly? 25,000 feet, 30,000 feet. Up there, the early Mustang is outclassed by everything. The Bf-109 runs circles around it. The FW-190 is faster and more maneuverable. The U.S. Army Air Forces test the Mustang in 1941 and pass. Not interested, they say. Can't dogfight at altitude. The British use it anyway, but not as a high-altitude escort fighter. They use it for low-level reconnaissance missions, tactical ground attack, close air support. It's good for those roles. Great, even. But as a bomber escort, useless. By 1942, the Mustang is considered a failure. A beautiful airplane with a crippling weakness. Engineers call it the $100 million mistake. And then a British test pilot changes everything. His name is Ronnie Harker. April 1942. RAF Duxford, England. Ronnie Harker is a test pilot for Rolls-Royce, the legendary British engine manufacturer. He's flown Spitfires, Hurricanes, everything the RAF has. And on this day, he's asked to evaluate the new American fighter, the Mustang. He climbs into the cockpit, fires up the Allison engine, and takes off. Within minutes, he's stunned. The handling is superb, better than a Spitfire. The roll rate is phenomenal. The visibility is incredible. The controls are smooth, responsive, intuitive. But when he climbs above 15,000 feet, the performance drops off a cliff. Harker lands and immediately writes a report. The airframe, he says, is brilliant, world-class, but the engine is holding it back. And then he has an idea. What if we put a different engine in this thing? Not the Allison, the Rolls-Royce Merlin. The Merlin is the same engine that powers the Spitfire. It's a masterpiece of British engineering, a supercharged V12 that produces over 1,500 horsepower. Reliable, powerful, and unlike the Allison, it performs beautifully at high altitude. Harker pitches the idea to Rolls-Royce executives. They love it. Within weeks, they've begun installing a Merlin engine into a Mustang airframe. The conversion requires modifications, new engine mounts, different cooling systems, redesigned air intakes. But it works. The first test flight of the Merlin-powered Mustang happens on October 13, 1942. Test pilot Ronald Shepard takes it up over the English countryside. And within minutes, he knows. This is something special. The transformation is total. Top speed, 390 miles per hour at 25,000 feet. Faster than the Bf-109. Faster than the FW-190. Service ceiling, 41,000 feet. Higher than almost any German fighter. Climb rate, 3,000 feet per minute. Exceptional, and the handling, still flawless. The Merlin adds power without sacrificing the Mustang's legendary maneuverability. Suddenly, the Mustang isn't just good, it's the best fighter plane in the world. But there's still one piece missing: range. Even with the Merlin engine, the P-51's range is only about 450 miles. That's an improvement over the P-47. But it's still not enough. Berlin is 600 miles from the English coast. Round trip, 1,200 miles. The Mustang needs more fuel, so engineers get creative. They add fuel tanks in the wings. They redesign the fuselage to fit extra tanks behind the pilot. They squeeze every possible gallon into the airframe. And then they develop drop tanks, external fuel tanks mounted under the wings. The pilot uses them first, then jettisons them before combat. It's extra fuel without the weight penalty in a dogfight. With drop tanks, the P-51 Mustang can fly over 1,600 miles, round trip. It can escort bombers to Berlin, to Munich, to Vienna, to the deepest targets in the Reich, and bring them home. For the first time in the war, Allied bombers would have protection deep inside enemy territory. In late 1943, the first P-51Bs arrive in England. Pilots are skeptical. They've heard promises before, but the moment they fly it, they're believers. One pilot later wrote, "The Mustang felt like an extension of your body. You thought about turning, and it turned. You thought about climbing, and it climbed. It was the most pilot-friendly fighter we'd ever seen." And in December 1943, the Mustangs fly their first escort missions. The Luftwaffe is about to learn a very painful lesson. January 11th, 1944. A formation of B-17s heads toward Oschersleben, deep in central Germany. It's further than any Allied escort has ever gone. And flying alongside them? P-51 Mustangs. The bomber crews can't believe it. They're used to watching their escorts turn back at the German border. But the Mustangs are still there. Mile after mile, deeper and deeper into the Reich. And then the Luftwaffe shows up. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs dive on the formation. This is supposed to be easy. The escorts should be gone by now. But they're not. The Mustangs break formation and engage. And what happens next stuns the German pilots. The Mustang is faster than the Bf-109. It can outclimb the FW-190. It can outturn both of them. One German pilot tries to dive away. The Mustang follows. He tries to climb. The Mustang stays with him. He tries a tight turn. The Mustang is inside his turn radius. There's nowhere to run. Within minutes, 3 German fighters are falling from the sky, trailing smoke, spinning out of control. The rest scatter. The bombers make it to target. They drop their bombs, and the Mustangs escort them all the way home. 0 bombers lost. Back in England, the bomber crews are ecstatic. They swarm the Mustang pilots, shaking hands, slapping backs. Some are crying. One B-17 pilot later wrote, "The first time I saw those Mustangs pull alongside us over Germany, I knew we were going to make it home. We called them our little friends, and they saved our lives." From that day forward, the dynamic of the air war shifts. German pilots are no longer hunters, they're prey. February 20th, 1944. The weather over Europe finally clears. For weeks, clouds and storms have grounded bombing operations. But now, the Allies launch their most ambitious air campaign of the war. Operation Argument. History will remember it as Big Week. The objective is simple: destroy the Luftwaffe, eliminate German fighter production, break their ability to defend the skies. Over 6 consecutive days, the U.S. 8th Air Force and the RAF launch nearly 4,000 bomber sorties. Targets include aircraft factories in Leipzig, Regensburg, Stuttgart, and Schweinfurt. And leading the charge, P-51 Mustangs, February 20th. Day 1. Over 1,000 heavy bombers strike targets across Germany. Mustangs escort them all the way. German fighters scramble to intercept, and they're slaughtered. The Mustang pilots have new orders. Don't just defend the bombers, hunt the enemy, chase them down, kill them. One Mustang pilot, Robert Johnson, shoots down 2 Bf-10-9s in a single pass. Another pilot, Don Gentile, downs 3 FW-19s in 10 minutes. February 21st, Day 2. The carnage continues. February 22nd, Day 3. Over 600 B-17s hit aircraft plants in central Germany. The Mustangs are everywhere. German pilots report feeling hunted, overwhelmed. By February 25th, it's over. The results are staggering. American fighters shoot down over 500 German aircraft in air-to-air combat. Another 600 are destroyed on the ground. German production facilities are devastated. But the numbers don't tell the full story. It's the psychological impact. The Luftwaffe has been broken. German pilots who survive report feeling demoralized, outclassed. One pilot later wrote, "We used to fear the bombers. Now we feared the escorts even more. The Mustang was faster, better armed, and flown by pilots who had no fear." After Big Week, the Luftwaffe never recovers. As the air war intensifies, Mustang pilots become legends. Don Gentile, an Italian-American from Ohio, is aggressive, fearless. He racks up over 30 kills. Eisenhower calls him one of America's greatest fighter pilots. Gentile doesn't just shoot down planes. He hunts them, chases them across Germany. One time he follows a German fighter so low that he nearly clips treetops. He gets the kill. Chuck Yeager, a mechanic's son from West Virginia, becomes an ace in a single day. October 12, 1944. He shoots down 5 German fighters in one mission. Yeager describes the Mustang like this: "It was honest. It didn't bite you. It just did what you told it to do. And if you were good, it made you look great." Bud Anderson, calm and methodical, flies 116 combat missions. He's never hit. Not once. He credits the Mustang's handling and durability. But not every story ends heroically. Flying combat is brutal, even in a Mustang. Pilot Robert Johnson is jumped by a Focke-Wulf over Germany. Cannon shells tear through his plane. The cockpit is shredded. The canopy is blown apart. His controls are barely responding. But the Mustang keeps flying. Johnson nurses it across hostile territory, crosses the Channel, lands in England. He walks away. When the ground crew examines the plane, they count over 200 holes. The Mustang saved his life. June 6, 1944. D-Day. 150,000 Allied troops storm the beaches of Normandy. It's the largest amphibious invasion in history. And overhead, P-51 Mustangs. They strafe German positions. They intercept Luftwaffe reinforcements. They provide air cover for the landing forces. The Luftwaffe makes a handful of sorties. But they're overwhelmed, outnumbered, outclassed. Allied air superiority is total, and it's because of the Mustang. As the Allies push deeper into Europe, the Mustangs follow. They escort bombers to targets across Germany. They sweep ahead of advancing ground forces. They destroy German supply lines. By the end of 1944, the Luftwaffe is finished. Pilots are inexperienced teenagers with minimal training. Fuel is scarce. Morale is shattered. Germany produces new fighters, even jet aircraft like the Me-262, but it doesn't matter, because the pilots flying them don't stand a chance. By war's end, P-51 Mustangs have destroyed over 5,000 enemy aircraft in air-to-air combat. Thousands more are destroyed on the ground. The Mustang accounts for nearly half of all Allied air-to-air kills in the European theater. One plane, one design. It broke the Luftwaffe. When the war ends in May 1945, the P-51 Mustang is the most successful fighter aircraft of World War II. But its legacy goes far beyond statistics. The Mustang proved that innovation wins wars, that collaboration wins wars, that sometimes victory comes down to one brilliant idea executed perfectly. Edgar Schmidt's aerodynamic genius, Ronnie Harker's inspiration, the marriage of American airframe and British engine, the engineers who squeezed every mile of range from the fuel tanks. It was a team effort that changed history. Without the Mustang, the strategic bombing campaign would have failed. D-Day would have been delayed or impossible. The war in Europe would have dragged on into 1946, 1947. How many more lives would have been lost? Millions, perhaps. But because of the Mustang, Allied bombers could strike the heart of Nazi Germany. And they could come home. After the war, thousands of Mustangs were scrapped, melted down, forgotten, but some survived. Today, a few dozen still fly, at air shows, races, historical events, and when they fly, people stop and stare. Because the P-51 Mustang isn't just a piece of history. It's a symbol of courage, innovation, and the power of human ingenuity in the face of impossible odds. In 1943, the Luftwaffe ruled the skies over Europe. German pilots feared nothing. And then came the Mustang. Sleek, silver, deadly. The plane that escorted bombers to Berlin and brought them home. The plane that turned the tide of the air war. The plane that killed the Luftwaffe. One aircraft, one mission, one purpose. It changed everything. And when you hear that Merlin engine roar overhead today, that deep, powerful growl, you're hearing the sound that broke an empire. The sound of freedom. The sound of the P-51 Mustang.